everyone. Good afternoon. We'll start the session after 2 minutes sharp. Thank you for being here. Hello, everyone. Very good afternoon. So before I start, if somebody can let me know if I'm loud and clear and audible. Am I audible to everyone?
Yes, you're audible.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So hello all, a very good afternoon. Myself, Ekta Dubey, and on behalf of the Branalytics team and our partners, Freshworks and Ozontel Communication, we welcome you all and thank you for being part of webinar, What's Next for E-Commerce CX, the rise of customized, conversational, and collaborative support solutions. So before I start the webinar, there are a few guidelines that I would like to quickly highlight and make you people aware of. I request all the attendees to be on mute when the thought leaders are taking the session. There would be a Q&A session after the panel discussion where attendees can raise their hands. The guidelines are, you need to raise your hands, unmute yourself on your video, introduce yourself, and put your questions to the concerned speaker. Also, we have a chat box which we will keep engaging. So if you have any insights or any queries, you can put your questions there and our moderator and our speakers will take it from there. So first, I would like to introduce our partners, Freshworks. Now, businesses are built on Freshworks, which makes it fast and easy for businesses to delight their customers and employees. They do this by taking a fresh approach to building and delivering software that is affordable, quick to implement, and designed for the end user. Headquartered in San Mateo, California, Freshworks has a dedicated team operating from 13 global locations to serve customers throughout the world. Also, we have a partner, Ozontel Communication, which was founded in 2007 by an experienced team of technologists and entrepreneurs. Their full-stack customer experience software was built from the ground to solve the practical problems that keeps call center worldwide for making the most of their communications platform. They are known for developing and launching the first cloud-based customer experience platform in the Indian marketplace. Since then, unparalleled customer support and continuous AI innovation continues to set them apart as they have grown to create a global impact. In this webinar, we shall talk about the constant and the rapid change that is new normal in the e-commerce industry. And now, before we proceed to the interesting expert session by all our thought leaders, I would like to introduce them who will be sharing their insights on the panel topic, that's what's next for the e-commerce CX. So today we have some speakers, Mr. Anand Narang, Vice President Marketing and CX with Bata, Mr. Debojit Sen, he's a business head with Cardeco, Mr. Prashant Kanchrela, Vice President International Business with Ozontel Communication, Mr. Vinod Chandramouli, Principal Consultant, Business Transformation Consulting Role, Freshworks, and our moderator, Ms. Prerna Ramesh, Senior Experience Officer with Ozontel Communications. And they will share some great thoughts on the subject today. And thank you all the thought leaders for being here with us today. And over to you, Prerna. And thank you.
Thank you, Ekta. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. So thank you for the introduction, Ikya. Thank you for all the panelists for being here today. And thanks for all the attendees as well. I just want to start off by talking a little bit about the agenda. First, let's do a sound check. If you have any problems with the audio, please let us know in the chat box. So this is how the panel discussion has been divided today. First, we'll go over the changing e-commerce landscape, given the situation that we've had in the past couple of years. We've seen a lot of unprecedented changes. So we want to discuss a little bit about the buying behavior, the business challenges that organizations have faced, and how we can tackle them going forward. Then we'll go into a more general, the CX roadmap, and with the touch points, the channels that people can use to interact with their customers, and talk a little bit about the solutions that we offer and how we can leverage these solutions to take your CX to the next level. We'll have a Q&A session after that, and then have a conclusion. So to get started, let me talk a little bit about e-commerce CX. What is the definition of this? Of late, people are realizing that there's a more holistic definition to customer experience, and e-commerce customer experience in particular, which refers to the sum of every touch point, every interaction, every engagement that happens between a customer and a business. And from the customer's perspective, every thought and feeling that they experience. So this covers a more holistic subject matter than we had previously considered. And given the situation in the past couple of years, the pandemic, the changing landscape of the e-commerce domain, let's talk a little bit about the change that has happened. We have noticed a change that is an accelerated shift from the physical to the digital space. So a lot more people are adopting the digital interactions that have been, become a lot more common in the past couple of years. It was already happening, there was a trend, but the pandemic has definitely accelerated this. And so let me start this off by asking you, Vinod. You work with the retailers across the Asia Pacific. Do you agree that there has been like an unprecedented market growth? What is your perspective?
Thank you, Prerna. And I absolutely agree. I don't think all of us would be sitting here wondering about CX if we didn't agree the sudden shift in digital. Although it was a long time pending, I have seen overnight changes in how brands and businesses look at digital journey. And there are a couple of reasons why. One obviously is the whole shift to work from home and the whole shift online for a lot of consumers. It put immense pressure in brands to also think about moving all their technology roadmap. Satya Nadal calls this 5 years of digital roadmap pushed within a quarter or two for brands to be able to accommodate. So that is a big shift in thinking for brands which had legacy systems. I saw a lot of them coming on board, moving almost overnight their legacy system and struggling to train their remote workers, struggling to manage the customers the right way. And then there were others who had fully embraced the digital world before even the pandemic hit, and they were the leaders, and they were the ones who saw the highest growth in the way the consumers were interacting with them. So that's one, obviously, we saw. The second one is behavioral change within consumers themselves. And this was a big shift because, consumers were no longer just people who could afford to come online and do this. These were consumers who were pushed online, had no choice but to pick up stuff online. And that made a lot of difference in how loyalty was being tested, right? You no longer really thought about loyalty the right way. I kind of feel like brands had to take care of themselves. Otherwise, consumers had 100 other brands to go after. So that was another big shift where we saw a lot of customers come in and really care for improvements in loyalty. And then the third one, I would say, is the shift of employees getting remote meant that there was no longer your standard definition of quality control, onboarding, and all of that. That again put an immense pressure and behavioral change for brands as well. So these are some three big points I think I want to highlight. But absolutely, I agree with that statement that it did change. The perspective has changed.
Right. Okay, so my next question is for Debajit and Anand, actually. So given this major change, that what are the changes that you have seen in your customer behavior? And do you think these are permanent, or do you think it's just the current shift that has caused all of these behavioral changes? So Anand, over to you.
Thank you, Vinod. Thank you, Prerna. So I think from our side, what we see is, so Bata is a family brand store, and we have been actually transforming the brand over the last 5-6 years, moving to bigger and better stores, moving to more casual and sneaker range, and attracting not just the Gen Z, but also millennials across there. So what we did, we actually have been over a period of time segmenting our consumers based on their digital literacy. And I'll give you a sense of how digital is actually being adopted by different segments. One segment we call is the digital natives, and these are the younger Gen Z customers in their 20s. Very comfortable browsing the websites, shopping online. They use digital cards to actually make payments. And for them, this has been the way of life. They have never seen a non-Wi-Fi era, I would actually say. So they're very used to it. And for them, we actually rolled out something which is Salesforce-enabled website, very good on recommendation engine and everything. So we provided them a superior experience because we knew that they are looking for the next level of inspiration across there. And these are the consumers, who from a customer experience perspective would not pick up a phone and call you. So if you look at some of the other stats from the telecom world, you will see that the younger generation doesn't use calls. They're actually using more WhatsApp, or they're just making WhatsApp calls, but very less physical, the old world calls, across there. So these consumers needed a new way to interact with us, and they are actually sending us just DMs. On Instagram or on Facebook saying, okay, I have this challenge, or where can I find this product, and all these kind of things across there. The second one is if I look at, the digital adopters. So these are people in their 40s, comfortable using some sort of digital payments. And then I would say that they're very, they would need a mix of support or inputs from store managers to some websites, but they actually traverse between both worlds. And for them, using emails is much more convenient. They send mails. They would want a contact center to send them a response, or probably call them. So that's the second level of audiences across there. The third one is basically the digital, I would say, basics. Who would actually, or novices, we call them digital novice. These are like older customers, 40 to 50-year-old and plus, elderly. So our parents' generation, who would actually be calling a store manager, and they would actually want to understand what is the product, and then probably make a placement across there, get the product delivered hyper locally. So for them, having a digital catalog is actually important. So what we see is the behavior digitally has actually changed. The adoption is much higher now, and it's a permanent behavior change, across there. It's not post-COVID, it will just go away. So I think in some sense it is actually good, because brands can actually deliver superior experience across all those different touch points that the consumers prefer. Yeah. Over to you, Debajit.
Yeah, what about you, Debajit?
Thanks, Anand. Thanks, Prerna, for the start. Ekta, thanks again. Hi, everyone on the call. I manage a business with Kardeko, which is one in the used car space. I think the reality is in front of all of us in terms of your question, Prerna. I think mostly all businesses have moved from physical to digital. Maybe the percentage movement has changed, but the movement has happened everywhere. If I talk about Kardeko and the auto tech world, I think this entire experience of buying and selling used cars and buying new cars have had a large shift towards the digital space. Now, if I give you some examples, in even the business that I manage, there is something called a self-inspection app that has come in that was never there with customers. So if you own a car now, you can actually sit at home, download an app on your phone and inspect your vehicle and send the details to the respective organization and they'll give you a price. Now, before you used to call people, your relatives, maybe friends or maybe dealers, they would come inspect your car physically and then maybe the transaction would happen. Now it's happening all contactless. There are examples of a virtual test drive. So this is also a very new phenomena because people don't want to walk out of their homes to the dealerships to check the new cars they want to buy. So they can sit at home and they have the experience of a virtual test drive, and post that they can decide whether they want to go ahead with the transaction or not. Even leaving aside that, I think even the interactions pre-purchase and post-purchase have also largely moved digital now. In pre-purchase, our call volumes have gone up with the customers. In post-purchase, all the service points are now happening either through a chatbot or online through a telephonic call or a WhatsApp discussion. So yes, lot of changes have happened, and I think eventually, because it was a highly physical world, at least the automobile space, eventually it will come somewhere in between, more towards the new reality. I don't think once COVID is over, we may not go back to the past reality, but somewhere in between, I think, but more towards digital, yes.
Right, that makes sense. So actually tying back to one of the points that you mentioned, we've also noticed a lot of increased customer interactions. So a lot of ticket volumes, a lot more calls coming in call centers over the past couple of years. So Prashant, over to you. Would you like to talk a little bit about this increase in call volumes that we've observed?
Yeah. So some interesting trends in the last 1 year, especially with the annual report we published, right, on the contact center world and how the metrics vary. Some important behavior shifts we have seen, and especially e-commerce as a vertical. Okay. When you take let's talk of post-sale support. Okay. People usually were waiting for about 30 seconds on average in the queues if it was a physical a call, a voice call restricted. Okay. Post-COVID world, people were waiting for almost 2.5 minutes in the queue before they dropped off the call. Okay. They were being more patient. They were waiting for customer support to answer because obviously volumes have doubled and tripled for most of the e-commerce firms across the globe. India is no exception. Okay. And that was a very important shift because people were being patient enough to wait and get the support. More importantly, on the sales side, what we see is some of the firms had done this even 5 years before, but they were primarily doing it through voice calls, where let's say a customer who is trying to make a payment on the portal, like a payment fails. You obviously know that it's a customer who will convert if you talk to them right now. Okay. And we were using automated dialers to dial back that customer, and an agent from the call center would talk to them and get the payment done. So the sale was made. Finally, the sale was made. Last 1.5 years, the chats and the texts and the bots were available even 5 years back. Technology change has not been that so. But adoption of the technology has changed in the last 1.5 years. So the same experience, now people have also started using bots and chats to send out WhatsApp messages, to send out text messages, asking the customer if they want help on the payment. So now it's not intrusive; it's more permission based. So the business would say, "Hey, we see you failed making a payment. Do you want some help here? If you want it, click here. If you want to chat with us, this is the number. If you want to call us." Okay. So now they've started providing more and more options. Now, in terms of digital shift of customer behavior, I've seen 2 e-commerce customers who've been with us for almost for 3 years now. The chat has been implemented almost 1.5 to 2 years back in both the customer space. Okay. Initially, the chat adoption wasn't much, but last 1 year, okay, I don't know if it is because of COVID, because Even the adoption of digital channels has increased over the years, and last 1.5 years we've been significant shift to digital channels. Suddenly, in the last 1 year, their chat volumes have gone up, and it was purely web chat. It wasn't even WhatsApp or texting. It was just a web chat which they had on the website for a long time, but because nobody was using it, they weren't focusing so much on how to use the chat. And last quarter, the chat volumes were double of the voice volumes for those two clients. And now they're actually in the process of revamping their entire chatbot so that they can automate some of the services and reduce the volumes of the load on the actual physical agents. So these are interesting shifts, at least I have seen from data over the last 1.5 to 2 years in e-commerce clients.
Right. It's interesting, this point that you raise about how people are willing to wait more, and the call wait times were a lot higher, whereas the abandon rates were like a lot lesser, is what we noticed in our data that we had during the pandemic. So it's made me wonder, in this scenario where we are not going out and where we were locked down, we didn't have much of human interaction. Do you think the need for this personalization and the human touch has increased? And this is an open question to anyone, so anyone of you can take it.
Yeah, maybe I'll take it and then I'll let the others jump in. I think personalization has moved away from is required to almost mandatory right now, right? And this sort of personalization, I call it personalization at scale, especially brands who are doing a lot of B2C. And I also, as a technology vendor, I also believe that there are technologies out there who can solve for many of these problems. But at the same time, a lot of this really is to understand what the customers are saying. So I'll give you a great example. I had a customer out of Southeast Asia who's looking to grow the user base overnight in moving them over to a WhatsApp number. And this sort of WhatsApp is almost fairly new for somebody in that organization. For a technology vendor like ours, this is a fairly simple use case. Before pandemic, it would have been a simple step. People would not have thought about it. But for this particular retailer, that seemed to be the biggest impact, like Anand was talking about. For a lot of them, moving to WhatsApp meant a big digital transformation shift, meant personalization at scale need to be thought through. A simple WhatsApp for business number with templates solved their need themselves. So I definitely think that personalization in a retail has always been prominent. It was easier if it was brick and mortar showrooms for people to understand each other. You had regular customers and you had interaction. But I think it also is easier now because everybody moved online. So it's not that one part of the segment moved online and the other was forced to stay offline. Both the retailers and the consumers were pushed online. So which meant that personalization at scale is doable, but at the same time, I think it's mandatory right now. Otherwise, brands will lose loyalty.
I think I'll just build on to what Vinod actually said. The personalization, especially in the e-commerce area, is quite pervasive. And brands are taking it not just in customer service area, but right at the discovery stage also. So I'll give you a few examples across there. The website technologies today actually allow you to actually personalize the experience. You are landing there the first time, second time, third time. The engine already knows, who you are, what you are looking for, and therefore they start personalizing the pages and the product history, that people like you also shop for this. So that's a very simple collaborative technology example. The second one could be at the time of purchase, and that's where, you are actually trying to help people personalize their experience. So in case of Bata, we actually launched something called as Find Your Shoe Size Finder. So this one, you can actually literally scan your feet because people are not coming into, I'm just giving you the COVID context example. People are not able to come to the store. So you're actually allowing them to use the mobile phone, the smartphone, just scan their feet. And then the application actually tells them that your size is 7 and therefore it can actually already show you the list of articles that are available in size 7. So that's another example at the discovery or the product choice stage. The third one could be, many brands actually allow you to actually save some of the details. So you don't need to actually, let's say, fill these details again. These are already pre-filled. It could vary from the kind of pizza that you may ordered last time. So those are available as a short list. To the credit card or the debit card you have actually saved last time. So that's again another level of personalization, so that the journey time, or let's say what you call as a frictionless shopping, the time to actually shop actually is spent more in inspiration stage, and then the time which is spent in actually the conversion phase is actually quite fast and efficient. So I think those are some of the examples that you will see that how personalization can actually reach the next level. And then finally, when the product comes to you, is it actually being addressed? Does it take into account some of your preferences? What kind of times do you want the delivery to be in? Whether it's a grocery delivery or something else? And do you have certain preferences to inform you over an WhatsApp or an email channel or over a phone call? I think that can already be configured by the brand. So there are a lot of options available in the market. It of course depends on your brand and what stage it is in terms of personalization, and what do you want to start from, and then therefore you should actually have a roadmap of journey. How do you want to scale up your personalization experience?
Yeah, go ahead, Devajit.
Yeah, some wonderful points, Vinod and Anand. I thoroughly enjoyed the points that you were saying. I think even in the space that I am in, personalization is becoming a big thing, and we are trying to customize it, the whole industry actually, as much as possible. For a car, for example, if you put just your registration details on any website of a player, it fetches data from Vahan, from backend, and actually tells you, okay, you are driving a Honda City for the last 5 years, and this must be the range of the vehicle if you want to sell it right now. And therefore, the experience is very different and very personal. You feel that the system is talking to me rather than just showing me some generic options. And this is pre-purchase. Similarly, post-purchase, I think the eventual transaction happens face-to-face. I mean, if you're delivering the car, there's a lot of emotional handholding also that's kind of required at that moment when the family kind of comes together, the pictures being taken, etc. That part is not digital still. That part is still very physical, and the customer wants that as a part of a car buying and selling experience, because it's a relatively high purchase, maybe after a property. So yes, personalization needs us something which is very much addressed to right now. Large part of it is getting addressed digitally. Some part is still there, which is physical and very important for the customer.
There are two parts to personalization. One is what the business wants to show to the customer. So if I am the user of Bata, what I see on the Bata website or on Karthik website, that's one thing. But when you look at it from a business point of view, how does Bata or Karthik want to interact with Prashant as a user? There's a reverse aspect as well for personalization. One important project we did for one of the largest FMCG firms entering e-commerce. Okay, we divided the customer personas into based on the user behavior. Okay? Like there are premium customers who always buy only the premium FMCG products. They would never go for the lower categories. Okay, the way we designed the marketing campaigns was completely different. Okay, we never gave discount coupons to the guys who were buying the premium products. Okay, it was always something else. But for the guys who were buying the low end category products, there was always a discount coupon. Okay, that was what gets you the customer onto the website. Okay, but that was not the case with the premium customers. Premium customers always wanted more premium products. Did you add anything new which is premium in category? Could be something like an organic foods. Okay. And what we see is percentage conversions drop if we give discounts to the premium customers, and if we did not give discounts to the lower category customers. Okay. So personalization also is both ways. It's from business to user and user to business. The way we are marketing to the customer also changes actually.
Interesting. That's a very good point, actually. Not just that we want to tell the customer, it's what the customer wants to hear. Both ways it goes. So, what are your thoughts on the increase in the self-service that has come into the customer experience space? Because we've seen a lot of, personally, I've seen a lot of requests coming in over the past couple of years for the bot services that we've all mentioned here. And it's made me wonder, do you think it's something that people are moving towards because it's as a need to cut operational costs, or is it actually to improve the customer experience? So what do you think? Vinod, can you give me a thought?
Oh, okay. Sorry, I was waiting for my name to mention.
Right.
Everybody is here got something to say about self-service. But self-service, contactless buying, a conversational commerce, all of these have also been words used in the last couple of years as a myth and future roadmap and an AI technology which was never there. I remember myself going up on stage in 2018 and 2019 talking about what the future holds in the world of bots and all of that. I think pandemic had made sure that everybody's heard it loud and clear, and also all parts of the organization really put their hands up and saying this is important, and it is important for both the brand and also for the employees. So as the volumes increased, we ran a survey for about 400, I think 300 retailers across Asia Pacific. And what we found out was, while these leaders mentioned that they definitely saw an increase in volume, they actually saw a reduction in budget and new hire. And what that meant was they had to continue to scale the experience a customer was expecting without adding more feet on the ground or without coaching the right set of people. What this meant was really look at technology and data to solve for something like this. So brands, when they walked up to us and they said, this is the problem we want to solve, we obviously suggested the bot capabilities we have. But I also believe that a lot of these brands do not need to look at bots in the complex way as they thought bots would be in the past as well. What Anand was talking about, what Debjit was mentioning, these are pioneers in looking at it from scale. And the simple intervention, understanding frequently asked tickets, and then putting that as a knowledge base in itself solves for many of these problems and issues. So I think looking at scale and looking at self-service goes hand in hand. If you want to scale your customer support, you've got to be ensuring that there is more self-service capabilities. There are more, complex scenarios sent through bot as a capability. Back in the day, the volumes of calls used to get controlled by IVR capabilities and sort of giving you more options or self-service on phones. And that's the same intent in your bots as well. You're sort of letting your consumers go via a digital asset and then say, make the decision, do it the right way. So yeah, Prerna. So I think as the volumes increased, brands had no other choice but to look at self-service. And that has definitely piqued interest between different departments and the way they think about scale as well. So I guess goes hand in hand.
I think I'll just add on there, what Vinod said. So I think the triggers can be several. I think Vinod actually mentioned budget constraints or better service. And we had similar, I would say, triggers inside. Both from a COVID perspective, I think retailers went through quite a tough time. And, we were actually transitioning to be an omni-channel retailer. And we realized that people actually wanted contactless services. So we launched something in India, which was one of the first brands, I would say, in India to launch conversational commerce. So we launched WhatsApp shopping. It's called Bata Chat Shop. And there we would actually allow consumers to find out, first of all, are the stores open or not? And which are the 3 nearest stores that are actually available across there. So they could actually see the presence and therefore also the opening timelines, and as well as call the store manager also if you're actually open, right? So that's one. Secondly, we also allowed them from a self-service perspective, find out how many loyalty points they have. People wanted to receive them, or even check out, are there some fresh coupons that the brand actually has given them. One of the examples that Prashant actually gave, To a high-end consumer, maybe probably they want one of the first ones to discover a new brand or new designs, whereas the discount seekers may want some coupons. So we actually made it slightly democratized. They didn't need to walk into a store and then find out what are the active offers. They could do it just by interacting over a WhatsApp with us. So there were menu options available there, and they could find out there. They could speak and chat with the store manager after finding out the nearest store manager, and then get a catalog of the product that they actually want. So let's say you want sneakers, and you can actually have a chat just like WhatsApp with your friends. Can you send me some of the sneaker designs? Okay, I'm looking for walking shoes, and I want probably in a pink color. So all this time, this has been enabled by a WhatsApp commerce across there. As I mentioned earlier, scan to find your shoe size. There's a link there that actually opens up a link in your smartphone, and you can find the size. And also, your active loyalty points and everything. So people could also forward some of these catalogs to their friends, just like over any other WhatsApp message. And this would actually enable, like shopping is always social. You always go there with your friends or family members, but now you are doing this kind of chatting conversation with your store manager. So you could actually ask your friends, does this look good on me or not? And you could actually get their recommendation. So I think COVID has been a great trigger in terms of brands actually rolling out a lot of self-service options, but also new commerce channels across.
That's really interesting, because you said that the entire customer journey from discovery to purchase, everything was done on WhatsApp itself, right? That's a brilliant example of self-service. Yeah, Devajit, what are your thoughts on self-service?
Yeah, I think Anand, I am going to definitely try the shoe size after the session today. Sounds very interesting.
I'll send you a WhatsApp number. Yeah.
Sure. But yeah, Prerna, I think you asked a very sensitive and interesting question in terms of whether it's because of operational efficiency or is it customer experience. I think before, businesses largely were built on linear expansion, right? To increase people, and therefore your volumes increase, your revenues increase. Right now, it's not just sustainable anymore, given that if you don't innovate, you're not going to survive. And the competition across sectors is becoming more and more cutthroat. And therefore, organizations are forced to innovate. They don't have a choice. And based on that, therefore, there are answers coming out like all of us are talking in terms of something that is in the self-service space, needs lesser people, and also gives a superior customer experience. So then you kind of try and look at the common point in the Venn diagram of what fits all of them. But not to innovate and just showing year after year that we'll kind of keep expanding by adding more cost just doesn't sell within organizations also anymore. So yeah.
Absolutely.
So just to add to that, one thing in self-service is obviously it's a need now. It's no more something fancy to be able to
have. Yeah.
Now the only question for businesses is how do you use it? That's the biggest question and challenge, because what I see during conversations is some of the customers are really intelligent. They know exactly how much they want to implement. They would not go over the board and try out everything else under the tree and implement it at one. They would just go with the top 3 challenges they have in maybe customer service or in sales, and they just implement those 3 aspects. They won't touch anything else. That delivers more performance than actually trying to just put everything under the in one self-service product. So I wouldn't want to name the businesses for negative experience, but primarily what you see is when you go to a bot which has like 20 different options on the bot, that's a bot which is definitely triggered to fail. It's never going to succeed simply because the technology is still not so mature to implement true AI-based responses. Okay. You have to mix and match between a design, typical like in voice you have IVR designs. Similarly, what most of the businesses run right now is a limited triggered responses which are designed. Okay? So you're giving users limited responses to select from and respond back. or it has to be such that it's a fixed service. Like if you take our client delivery, right? They're not an e-commerce firm themselves, they basically do deliveries. Okay. Their biggest self-service performer is order status management. Okay. One single change in self-service reduced almost like 45% of the call volume and chat volume. Okay. Nothing else. They didn't do anything else in self-service. Just that when a user calls in, they start playing their order status. If you already have an order placed with them and there is a delivery pending, they just play the order status. And that reduced almost 45% of the volumes going to the agents. Okay. So it's not just about the technology, but also how to design it for the business. Okay. So instead of going for all in at one go, it's better to see what are your top 3 drivers for self-service from customer point of view. Also the top 3 drivers from business point of view. And do they matching the match, then it's a perfect thing to implement. If not, then maybe there are 6 items, 6 different things to implement. But that's the only way businesses would succeed right now. True AI, I believe, is still like 2-3 years away. We still don't have a true AI bot which will just listen to you and respond back like a human. That's still not there. Anywhere across the globe, you would see that.
Right, right. So this actually transitions me perfectly to the next half of our panel discussion about the CX roadmap and the different touch points that are there in the CX roadmap. And as I mentioned earlier, and as you just mentioned as well, there are different parts of a customer journey which have to be the type of interaction that you have at different types, stages of a customer journey should also differ accordingly. And I believe, Prashant, you had a few points over here to talk about the how to automate certain customer touch points and how the customer lifecycle journey is not just about having a better call center, is not just about having better support solution, but also a pre-purchase and different parts of it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I briefly touched upon it in the previous examples. Okay.
Yeah.
So when we're talking of customer experience, in fact, I think everybody agrees that it is not just sales or support or marketing, it's everything together. Nowadays, it's everything. So that's why there is a complete customer journey mapping which is done when you try to implement any solution. And when you look at these points, right, primarily when you look at it from a sales point of view, even before sales, obviously you're trying to get the customer onto your website so they can come and see what's there. The customer can come to any channel. Okay. So it's not, they might not end up directly on your website. They could see your website through a Google ad campaign. Recently, even Google added Google Messenger as a direct chat option. Okay. So you can implement self-service bots on Google Messenger directly. Okay. That's something which is implemented already and we support that. So if a user comes to Google Messenger, you can still give them the same experience what you give on your self-service bot on the website. Okay. So usually those are the things which businesses need to adapt quickly, which will make a difference in terms of conversion, especially when you're trying to convert new prospects. Okay. Most of the businesses, I believe, they spend heavily on Google Ads. Obviously, that's one of the primary channels which drives website traffic. So implementing a simple Google Messenger bot would actually change everything, because then customer is not just clicking on your ad, he's directly interacting with either a bot or a physical agent. Somebody is responding to the customer, trying to engage with them and make the sale then and there. So that's like a direct conversion which can happen. Now, the changes, and this is what is new right now, and the things are happening so fast that even adoption of technologies is a challenge for businesses. Okay, simply because like Google Messenger launched this about 2 months back. Okay. It's still in the beta phase, but how many of the businesses would first adopt it and actually see the changes happening? That's whoever does it first would gain the first mover advantage. simply because user behavior would come in later, but whoever does this in the first 6 months, they would obviously be able to perfect it and be ready when it actually gets into the market. So adopting to new technologies is something which businesses have to continuously look at. Okay. Other than that, like the dialer example I was giving, just to put the numbers in place, without having a physical agent touch point or an interaction from the business when a payment fails on the payment gateway. Interesting use case there is we actually divided the categories. So any customer who has tried the payment and failed, those were the gold. We call them as red actually. Okay, red customers. So those are the customers where a call is triggered always. Even today, a call is always triggered and a physical agent talks to the customer. And 90% of the times it converts, which means customer pays and converts. The intent is almost 90% from the customer side. So the agent, it's only that the business has to be available for the customer to talk and convert. Now there were the blue category where they've come to the payment page, but no action on it. They haven't done anything. So they've added the product to the cart, they've gone to the payment page, but after that they did not click the payment. Okay. These were the blue category. And here, previously it was still the dialer, but now what we've done is, now with WhatsApp, with texting, with so many other channels coming in, what we've done is WhatsApp is the primary channel, at least for India, it's the primary channel. We are pushing an outbound interaction message which businesses can do now on WhatsApp to that consumer. Obviously, we know who the consumer is because he's already logged in and trying to purchase the product. Okay. So the business pushes out messages saying that we see there's a failure. If you need help, just type out help in the WhatsApp itself, and an agent would start interacting. And usually, what we see is at least 50% of the customers talk to the agent and get going with the payment. They obviously have some query about the product and they wanted to talk to it. And usually, it's impulse buy, right? If they don't act then they would not probably buy it at all. So, getting the customer there and then to talk and push him to the purchase is very critical. Then the third category is people who add to the cart and do not purchase it at all. Okay. So they don't go to the payment gateway. They've just added to the cart and have done it. Here, there's no physical agent or chat. It's always text messages telling the user you have two pending items in the cart which you can purchase. These are either in-app notification based where the business does it themselves, or usually now WhatsApp messages are being sent saying that you have pending items in the cart. Do you want to continue with the purchase? Click me. Okay. So these are things we implemented there. And in terms of support solutions, what we've done is support also has become more proactive. So typically with some of our e-commerce clients, if the deliveries are delayed, there are automated messages sent out. Okay. And if the WhatsApp messages aren't delivered, we try to send a text message. And if there is obviously a lot more delay than, let's say the delivery was after 12 and it's delivered by tonight, it's okay. Send a text message, customers are okay with that. But if you're delayed by 2 or 3 days, then there's a call which is sent out. So now businesses have automated, which is a text message where it's non-intrusive, you don't interact with the customer, but information is still sent out, and which is a call where you have to interact with the customer and actually probably console them for the delays.
Right. So it's like a combination of having a human being when required, customizing it according to when you can just send an automated message, having. Absolutely. And for different customers, having different types of the customer segmentation that Anand was talking about earlier, as well as having this across coming from different departments like sales, support, and marketing, right? That's interesting. So, this. Speaking of which, Vinod, I was hoping you would weigh in on this. This is not, the customer experience is no longer, sales, support, or marketing, or any one department. It has to encompass the complete organization. So who do you think should lead CX in an organization?
I think Prashant covered some aspect of it, but if it's a question which is being asked to the organization, I believe CX is being taught the wrong way. I think customer leads the CX in any organization. And customers' data, in fact, is the only primary driver for decision making. Um, I believe CX is everybody's business, and it isn't, then it is a big issue. Because there is a very thin line, or the line is actually slimming down between what you believe is the customer experience post sale versus pre sale. What you believe customer experience is only after they have officially become a customer, especially in the world of retailers. They could be doing everything online, but could come to an offline store to purchase, which is they could be reading about it, they could do a forum and a community check like Anand was talking about, they could be asking their family members to see if it fits or not, but they could go offline and purchase. But if they don't see that option, then it becomes a big issue. And vice versa as well. They could be buying everything offline, but they would want to complain or talk about it online. They would want the brands to be able to provide stuff online. This again is an expectation they have. So I really think that there isn't a post support or post sales support, which is only CX, and pre-sales support, which is only marketing, and in between, which is sales. And I think that the experience a customer gets out of a brand is almost not from a point A to a point B, which is usually how customer journeys are thought about, but it's almost from a point A to a point B back to a point A maybe, or a point A to a point B to a point C back to a point A. And that cycle needs to be thought through and intervened by technologies like how Prashant was talking about, or how Anand was giving examples, or maybe even process and humans being put across. But I think I really think that there isn't any difference between any of this, and I still think that customer is the only owner of driving customer experience within any brand. I don't think it's singled out to one department.
That makes sense.
Prerna, can I add something to what Vinod said?
Yeah.
Yeah, Vinod, I think completely agree to the point of view on customer owning this space. I think to add to it, what organizations have also now started doing is trying to own the entire ecosystem of the customer life cycle. Again, from the sector that I am working in, right from the experience of trying to purchase the new car, post that the entire finance or insurance is all now online. You don't have to actually go anywhere. The transfer, the RC transfer that happens if the ownership changes of the vehicle is again online. The organization more or less starts noticing that after 4 to 5 years, you might be wanting to sell this car and buy another one. And therefore, the follow-ups also start happening accordingly. That, okay, this car is now 4 years old. Would you want to sell it? You get a great price for it. And depending on the past car that you have bought, they are going to suggest you an upgrade in your life cycle, where you would be and which car would you prefer. And before, maybe because you would have felt that I prefer SUVs, they would still suggest you maybe a higher segment SUV after 4 years, 5 years, unless you have suggested something else differently on their platform during this time. So experience based on the entire life cycle of the customer that particular sector can own is also something that's coming up in a big way, and technology is helping a lot in making that journey successful.
Absolutely, yes. Anand, I would like to ask you a question over here, and how I want to know what the process was behind your decision making to use WhatsApp, and how do you decide which channel works for different types of interactions? Because we have a lot of different solutions out there, different channels that you can choose from. And you did mention that the customer segmentation was one part of it. And was there any other thought process that went into your decision making on choosing?
Okay, so I'll slightly give you a longish answer, building on what Devajit and Vinod actually said. So for us, customer experience transformation has been a journey, over the last 24 months. And I'll give you the playbook examples there. So there were 4 parts that we actually looked at. We said previously, many people actually owned the customer service part of it. So we had marketing also, working with the consumers, and then also the e-commerce team also. So we said, okay, this is clearly not working. There were some things that were actually falling through the cracks. So we said, let one team actually become the overall owner across there. And so therefore moving from multiple teams to single team. So that was the first part of the playbook. The second one was, we were actually struggling with manual contact center operations in terms of using Excel to track consumer interactions. And then we moved to Freshworks, and that actually simplified the life. You could literally track, and some of the new age brands, probably like they would from day one start there. But companies like Bata, which has been around for many, many years, I think there's a transformation journey that every brand needs to take. So my message there to the audience also is that don't worry, wherever you're starting, I think you need to start from somewhere. So we also moved from Excel based to ticket based, and I think it has been such a sigh and relief. Now you can literally track where is the issue and what are the SLAs and where it is stuck. The third one was we looked at also and that's where some of the answers will come, is different consumer journey. So every journey has to start somewhere. We talked about, as Debujit said, not only look at the time of purchase, but even RC transfer. That's a wonderful example. How do you actually stitch the journey, and then you actually say different teams have a role to actually play there, and then from there you actually define the timelines in which this needs to be finished. And if you are falling short of those timelines, how do you fix it? And that's where some of these interventions from technology will come in. And there, as an example, we work with Freshworks. We did a lot of integration between Freshworks and different disparate systems. We had like almost, if you are a contact center agent, you would be literally looking into, let's say, 14 or 15 separate databases to start giving an answer to a consumer. And that's why your calls would be long. And if the calls are long, Prashant would agree, the abandonment rate would actually go up, because you're not able to actually take all the calls. So we said, okay, can I actually integrate some of these disparate systems? And today, the number of systems are actually integrated. There are APIs talking to each other rather than an agent opening 15 screens. And that's where, the answers actually came. Should I actually be using WhatsApp, across there, or is an SMS more efficient? Or should I just be sending an email to a consumer? As an example, if you call our contact center today, I'll give you a live example. Consumers actually call and actually say, is your store open? And can I get the store manager number? Today, it's slightly, we have the list of stores and the times for which the stores are open. Some stores are still, partially open on weekends or closed on weekends in Mumbai and some other parts. So we give them the details. Now we are building a technology API integration between Freshwork and our store master database, where we'll be sending this automated message to a consumer saying, here is the store details. A similar message will go to the store, and the store manager can place an out call to the customer saying, you called for the store, I'm the store manager, would you like me to actually help you in some way? So I think that's where, bridging some of these technologies will come. And finally, for us, we also wanted to move to a much more reliable, context center partner, which had the tech, where the calls were being audited. Because agents, if you also look from their perspective, they are fresh pass out from the college. They need to be trained, they need to be coached, how to manage a consumer and what are the compliance standards and everything. So I think that became a playbook for us. But we kept the technology options open, whether to use a WhatsApp or an SMS or an email. And we are continuously evolving it, because it's not one size fits all. It will evolve as new technology come up. As Prashant mentioned, there is a GBM, but there is also a Google has an RCS, so Rich Communication Service, which is the next generation of SMS. So you try it out, you have some pilots, you try it out and have a continuous, I would say a MarTech roadmap, a marketing technology stack roadmap. And you see what works with your audiences and you scale it up and then you pilot. Let's say every quarter have 1 or 2 pilots to keep this, the CX experience improvements.
Great. Yeah. Thank you. So speaking of the technologies and the tools that you use, I think this would be a good time before we move to the questions, for Prashant and Vinod to talk a little bit about our Ozondel Freshworks integration. I'm just going to share a couple of screenshots to facilitate this discussion. So yeah, Vinod, you can start.
Yeah. I think what we're seeing on the right-hand side is the Freshworks integrated with Ozondel. And I think I want to anchor on what Anand was talking about. build on why this is important. See, at the end of the day, everybody is talking at an API level. These are all API calls being made. These are all on the public internet or private, depending on the vertical something comes in. So the aspect of building a technology stack and putting all your eggs on one basket, I think is long gone, because there are so many micro modules within the world of customer experience which has come up, that you could literally talk to 10 different technology vendors and they could be talking to each other. If you can spend more time on looking at what you would need, like Anand was talking about, experimenting. I think the key here is experimentation. One such integration, I see a lot of our retail customers in India and also across APAC use, is the CTI connector. And it connects really well with what Ozontel has to offer, especially when the power of contact center or voice can be tapped in from somebody like an Ozontel Communications versus the ticketing and the automations which come from ticketing and the other channels which come in. So this integration is almost between, although it looks like two different organizations, actually fairly within the same screen, gets the power of both, gets the best of both the worlds, I would say.
And just to add to that, see, even now, while CX has changed across the customer journeys, when you still look at the contact center, most of the businesses book it under a cost center. Okay. So, and what becomes important in a cost center is agent efficiencies. When you talk of physical agents taking the calls or chats, agent efficiency is one of the most important pieces. What the integration solves here is not just about showing customer information, but when you look at it from the business point of view, agents are able to actually deal with the calls much faster, deal with the chats much faster. So their AHT is considerably reduced. We see at least 30 to 40% reduction in AHTs, especially when CRM is integrated versus it's not integrated. There are two different screens where the agent has to operate. So one simple factor is agent efficiency, for which business definitely needs to have an integrated CRM. And with Freshworks, our toolbar sits into the screen. So agent doesn't need to see the toolbar at all. It's just the Freshworks screen. And only if they have to mute the caller if it's a voice call. Otherwise, it's not created. If you want to mute or hold or transfer, then you go to the Ozontel screen. Otherwise, it's just the Freshworks screen which the agent sees and delivers. So for the agents, it's a unified experience.
I'll just add on here. I think we've seen, how having an open system like Freshworks or any system, I think that you would actually buy, having some of these very easy to deploy connectors with the partner brands, it actually helps quite a lot. And I've seen, in our case, the AHT, the average handling call time was more than 6 minutes, and then we dropped to below 4 minutes. So, you could really optimize your contact center operations, service better, the abandonment rate came down, the SLAs went up across there, So, and the other thing is, keep looking at, how do you prioritize, some of these areas, which integration to prioritize. So have a look at, the top interactions with the consumers, and then actually see, okay, can in the next 2 months, can I actually automate this or actually make the process better by putting in place some of the KPIs and SOPs? And as Vinod mentioned, customer experience is not just one team's responsibility. Even a finance team or a logistics team in the backend can actually make a huge difference if they comply with some of the times in which they need to revert to a customer. Because if you don't revert to a customer in time, then comes the second call, and then the third one is like, sending a message on your Instagram feed, and then it starts getting into a loop, So I think everybody has a responsibility to ensure that the CX is actually working seamlessly and to the expectation. And one of the things that we have seen is that customers do give you that chance, provided you are actually able to communicate with them transparently. If you tell them, okay, we'll revert back to you, or my supervisor will call you back in 2 days, or this product we are running late and the delivery will now happen in 3 days. I think they give you that benefit of doubt, saying that at least the brand is making proactive communication across there. So be transparent, and I think if you manage the expectations, the volume can automatically come down because people do have that patience. Normal human beings do have that.
Great. So I just see one question here from the audience, which is about the data which was shown earlier, mentioning the business trends like banking, e-commerce, etc. The source of it. So yeah, I can take that. That's the source of that is a McKinsey report that was published. We'll send out the data sources for all of the presentation later after this call. Do we have any other questions from the audience now?
Yes, Prerna. I would request the audience, as I've already shared the guidelines, that you can raise your hand and introduce yourself and put the question to a panel. So we'll wait for a while, Prerna, for the people to raise their hands.
Sure.
Okay, we have a question on the chat box from Raj Balakrishnan. Prerna, if you can read that, if you can take it, yeah.
So it says, was there an increase in NPS or CSAT when the AHD reduced? So was there an increase in customer satisfaction times when the average handling times were reduced?
Yeah, so what we have seen, so NPS, so I'll break up the answer. NPS is actually being deployed in Bata. So anytime you actually shop, you would actually get a message along with the bill invoice saying that how was your shopping experience, and then there's a list of Q&As across there. We just discontinued the NPS temporarily during COVID times, but previously when it was actually running, we could actually see that as soon as you would be able to respond back to the consumer faster, either from a contact center, and the NPS system that we had actually deployed, it would allow the store manager to first call out to the customer and actually resolve the issue. So if there was a detractor and they actually made a comment that my shopping experience was not great or I could not find the design, it became the first option to close was not from the contact center, but by the store manager, because the store manager owns the consumer. So example of what Vinod said, everybody owns the consumer. So store manager would be given 24 hours to call back the consumer and rectify the issue because it was a complaint. If they didn't do, then there would be an automatic escalation to the district manager, which is again a part of the sales team. If they don't respond within the 48 hours, it shows as open and it was integrated, then the contact center would actually reach out to them. So we could see that, first of all, the ownership mindset became, ye mera customer hai, and therefore I need to make a call to the consumer to rectify it, because if I'm actually able to rectify the issue, the consumer is more likely to come back to my store. So that's what we did. And that also reduced the load on the contact center, and also and then, if you would get into this kind of issue that you actually didn't service the consumer properly, and then the contact center will call the store manager. So all that was avoided because now the store manager will make a call out. So we saw that, yes, NPS of the store actually improved, and then also overall of the whole, Bata as a company.
Excellent. Do we have any other questions?
Audiences, if we have any questions, so please raise your hands or you can put in the chat box. So we'll wait for a while, Prerna, if any question comes in.
Sure. So in the meantime, I want to get your thoughts on what do you think is the future? What do businesses have to follow for in 2022 in the in e-commerce customer experience? This is an open question. Yeah, go ahead, David.
I can start. I think a lot of changes happening in the auto tech space in terms of customer experience. One of them is this entire transaction of the electric vehicles. which I think by the next year or so, all manufacturers will be having. Some of them have a model now, but mostly all. How this kind of changes this entire space is yet to be seen, but is going to be that thing is going to be very interesting. Also, there are not too many marketplace models for new cars and used cars right now. And that is something that a lot of players are now looking forward to. So, for example, if you want a BMW of 2017-18, let's say 2, 3, 4 years old, and your budget is, let's say, 40 lakhs, this is an example. If you just put in those details, you can start seeing maybe 5 different options standing at 5 different places close to you. Something like that, which is very much there in most other sectors, is yet to happen in the automobile space. But there are some good planning happening in terms of opening up models like that. Just put in your budget and the manufacturer, and we'll look at what options do you have from both new car and used car perspective. So some of these changes should come in, Prerna, in the next 1 year or so, that we are looking forward to.
That's very
I think
interesting.
I'll just add there. So I think what would actually come is also dependent on how the technology is evolving. So with the advent of 5G and also a lot of data becoming democratized in India, you will see a lot of requirement for real-time applications across here. So if you are in a store, you would like to actually have the same experience that you would actually typically find in a website, which is what was the review rating of this product, how was the experience of other customers. So if there is a small and QR code scanners are actually available in all apps these days. Even the cameras now come embedded with the QR code readers. So you just scan the product and it will automatically pick up, this is what the product reviews are, as an example. So interactivity within the omni-channel environment would definitely increase. The other thing would be, from a guiding the discovery part of the store. So I remember, one of the examples where you walk into a store and you are actually using, as an example, Alexa or similar voice assistants like Siri, and saying you're slightly confused, and let's imagine there is a liquor store and you are trying to actually shop for, let's say, whiskey or something. So chatbots or even these virtual assistants can actually guide your purchase by saying, whether it's through an app or also, with voice assistant saying, okay, this is what I want to buy, let's say, a wine for cheese, at home because there is a get together, can you actually help me in that? So I think that becomes another layer of how technology will actually come inside the stores, and you can actually use that to guide and engage with the consumers inside the store. So I think that could be another example. The third one is what Prashant and Vinod already mentioned. Your loyalty systems will increasingly become AI and machine learning enabled, which means that the quality of recommendations that you actually have could actually be probably 10x as it actually increases across there. So I think from that perspective, some of these new technologies would actually be there that would enable a better CX.
Also, Prerna, there are completely new things which will change customer behavior. Like if you take typical day-to-day activities in the home, right? Things like grocery. Okay, you have so many grocery e-commerce stores. Okay. But if you see newer technologies coming in, there are complete kitchen automation tools which are coming, where you don't cook anything. There are systems which would cook for you. Obviously, they're very costly right now, but there are people even in India who are building complete automated kitchens which will cook your curries, rice, everything in the. It's completely automated. Just select the curry you need and they will cook it. And what they're doing is they are actually trying to partner with one or two e-commerce players to automate even the grocery order. So you just put in the menu you need for the week, and it would order all the groceries needed. And it just does everything else. Okay. And they're trying to partner with hotels where the grocery delivery is done by the e-commerce store, order automation, refilling is automated with the e-commerce stores. So there you are not even ordering things. Okay. The systems are taking care of ordering, refilling, everything else. Okay. So future is definitely very challenging for current businesses, because you have to be on your toes and see what are the new things which will disrupt your space. Because that's what will change the complete ecosystem for products.
Absolutely.
So I think we have enough questions. The rest of the questions, Prerna, you can take it. I can share it with you later on.
Sure. You can, any audience members can go ahead and tweet their questions to us as well. I've included our Twitter handles online. Okay, great. Thank you. Over to you, Ekta.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So now on this closing note, it was a great, interesting session with Freshworks and Ozontel. And now I would like to thank our partners, Freshworks and Ozontel, and our thought leaders, Mr. Devojit and Mr. Anand, for taking out your precious time and being with us today. All the audiences, thank you again. It's Thursday evening and I know we are working, but still you managed to take out your precious time and have been a lovely audience. We had some great questions at the end of the session. So any more questions will be, you can tweet as Prerna has also already mentioned about it. Also, we have shared the feedback form on the chat box 2 to 3 times, which also mentions about one-on-one brainstorm virtual session with Freshworks and Ozontel. If you are interested and want to know more about them, we would be happy to connect you guys with them. And also the video link will be shared with you along with the feedback again, all the audiences. And please follow us on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter for more webinars and updates. So yes, have a good day, a good evening, and please stay safe. Thank you everyone once again for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.